Welcome to the Prescott Lab Podcast, not just theory, practical science for everyone. I'm Dr. Jonathan Prescott, a physician and integrative medicine researcher at the Ravenshade Institute for Human Health. And if you're a man over 60 listening right now, this episode isn't just for your curiosity. It's for your strength, your clarity, your dignity. Let me ask you something man to man. Have you ever wondered what happens when you stop touching your own body, not out of shame or guilt, but just because you stopped? You see, this isn't about fantasy. It's about function. It's about your prostate, your brain, your heart. Your ability to sleep like a man who still owns his body and not drift like a ghost in someone else's skin. But before we dive in, do me, and more importantly, do yourself a favor. If you believe that taking back control of your health starts with one small act of intention, go ahead and hit that like button. Not just for the algorithm. Do it for you. Because I've seen this time and again. The moment a man chooses to care for himself, the universe responds. I've had patients tell me, "Doc, I hit like on one video and somehow I started sleeping better, laughing more, feeling present again." So go ahead and hit like, and may that click bring you closer to the man you remember being. May your nights be deeper, your steps be steadier, and your mirror greet you like an old friend. And if this message already speaks to your gut, drop a comment below. Type 1 if you've ever felt the slow fade I'm talking about. Type if you're still unsure. Either way, I'm listening. We all are, because this community cares. Now let's talk about something no one has ever told you out loud. What really happens inside your body when you stop masturbating after 60, and why it might be the quiet reason you're feeling weaker, foggier, and less like yourself. Well, let's begin. 1. Prostate health and the cost of stagnation. I once sat across from a man named Thomas, 68 years old, a retired engineer, precise in thought, measured in speech. But that day, his voice was hesitant. "Doc," he said, "I've never had serious health issues. But lately, I'm waking up 4 or 5 times a night to pee. The stream feels weak, and I still feel like I need to go even after I've just gone. Is this just what happens after 60? That question haunts more men than you'd imagine. And the answer isn't just about aging. It's about neglect. It's about what happens when the prostate, that small but vital gland nestled deep within a man's body, is no longer allowed to do what it was designed to do. You see, the prostate isn't some passive passenger in the male anatomy. It's active, responsive, alive, and like any part of the body, it needs movement, it needs release. Without regular ejaculation, even from something as simple and natural as masturbation, that fluid it produces begins to sit, stagnate, and slowly, silently swell. And when that congestion builds up, it doesn't just stay quiet. It starts pressing against the urethra. It disrupts your flow. Your nights become fragmented. You plan your mornings around bathroom access. And before long, something sacred, your comfort, your confidence, starts to unravel. Nearly half of all men over 60 deal with benign prostatic hyperplasia. And in many cases, it worsens when that prostate is left unexpressed. This isn't about sex. It's about biology. It's about maintenance. It's about giving your body permission to stay alive, to function, to breathe. I've had patients like Thomas return weeks later with brighter eyes and stronger voices. "What changed?" I'd ask, though I already knew. And they'd smile a knowing smile and say, "I remembered to care for myself again." If you're listening and this hits home, ask yourself honestly, have you neglected this simple rhythm of release? Because your prostate hasn't forgotten, it's just waiting and swelling in silence. Now let's move upward to the command center of it all. What happens to your brain when this natural signal goes missing? We'll talk about that next. 2. Mental fog and the brain's silent cry for connection. Let me tell you about Raymond, 66, a retired architect who once designed city blocks from memory. He used to lead teams, sketch blueprints by hand, and debate city officials with steady brilliance. But the day he walked into my office, he looked unsure. "Doc," he said, "I walked into the kitchen and forgot why. I started talking and the words just vanished. I don't feel like myself anymore. Most people would call that aging. I don't, not until we look deeper, because what many don't realize is this. When a man stops engaging sexually, even privately, the brain loses one of its key sources of fuel. Climax isn't just physical release, it's neurological restoration. In that moment, the brain surges with dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, the chemicals of memory, mood, and motivation. They calm cortisol, oxygenate your neurons, and yes, they sharpen your thinking. Without them, the fog creeps in. You forget names, you hesitate, you doubt. And little by little, you withdraw not from the world, but from your own thoughts. Raymond hadn't touched himself in years. Felt like that part of me was over, he whispered. But what was really fading was his edge, his spark, his presence. Sexual inactivity lowers testosterone, and low testosterone dulls everything: memory, focus, confidence. I've seen it turn leaders into bystanders and sharp men into silent ones. But here's the truth. The solution wasn't in a bottle. It was in reconnection, not fantasy but biology, not youth but choice. So ask yourself honestly, has your mind felt slower lately? It may not be time, it may be the silence. And when the mind begins to fade, the heart is rarely far behind. Next, we'll explore the emotional cost of letting this part of you go, and why it may be the very reason you feel numb when you should feel alive. 3. Emotional numbness and the disappearing self. His name was Walter, 72, a widower and former military chaplain. He carried himself with quiet dignity, polished shoes, pressed collar, steady handshake. But when I asked how he'd been feeling, his gaze dropped. I don't really feel much at all anymore, Doc. Not happy, not sad, just nothing. And I've heard that same hollow echo from countless men. They think it's just age or grief or life slowing down, but often it's something far more specific. A silence that begins the moment a man stops connecting with his own body. You see, masturbation isn't just a physical act. It's emotional regulation. It's a natural way the body releases pressure, tension, and even unspoken sorrow. During climax, oxytocin and endorphins flood the nervous system, not to arouse but to soothe. They soften anxiety. Lift the weight off the chest. Remind the body it's still here, still capable of failing. When that rhythm disappears, so does emotional texture. Conversations become shorter, smiles grow fainter. And little by little, a man stops participating in his own life. I've seen it in the smallest details. They stop shaving, stop dressing with intention. Meals become routine, days blur together. Not because they don't care, but because something inside quietly shut off. Walter hadn't touched himself since his wife passed. Felt like I'd be betraying her, he said, but what he was really abandoning was himself. After I gently encouraged him to reconnect not sexually but sensually, something shifted. He began feeling again, laughing again, crying again, and most importantly, belonging to himself again. So let me ask you, do you still feel your days, or are you just watching them pass? Because when a man stops engaging with his own body, the world doesn't just get quieter, it gets dimmer. And that dimness can steal something even more precious, your sleep. Next, we'll look at what happens when your body forgets how to rest, and how a simple act of self-care can turn it all around. 4. Reduced sleep quality and the forgotten rhythm of rest. He came into my office looking worn. Harold, 69, a retired mail carrier who once walked 10 miles a day without blinking. But this time his steps were slow, his eyes hollow. Doc, he whispered, I fall asleep fine, but every night around 2 a.m. I'm wide awake. No dreams, just the ceiling. We ran every test, heart, lungs, brain, all normal. No apnea, no medication changes, no caffeine. But still, the silence in his nights was deafening, so I asked him something few doctors ever do. Harold, when was the last time you touched yourself? He looked away. Been years. Figured that chapter was done. But it wasn't done, because here's what we often forget. Climax is a physiological gateway into deep sleep. When a man ejaculates, even alone, the body shifts from fight to rest. Oxytocin, endorphins, and prolactin flood the bloodstream, calming the heart, relaxing the breath, softening the muscles. Cortisol, the stress hormone that keeps you awake, drops. It's not fantasy, it's biology. And it's been wired into us for thousands of years. But when that ritual vanishes, so does the signal. Your body stays in a subtle state of readiness, never quite powering down. Night after night, you wake up alert but unmoored. And slowly, the exhaustion begins to compound. Your mornings feel heavier, your patience wears thin, your immune system dips. And worst of all, you start to believe that deep sleep is a thing of the past, but it is. After just 2 weeks of gentle, mindful reconnection, Harold came back smiling. "I'm sleeping like I haven't in 30 years, he said, and I believed him because his face showed it. His eyes were rested. His voice had weight again. So if you're listening, and the night has felt longer than it used to, don't rush for pills. Ask yourself, when was the last time your body was reminded how to exhale? Next, we'll talk about the part of your body that gets ignored until it fails. The deep, silent foundation beneath your core and what happens when it starts to collapse. 5. Pelvic weakness and blood circulation, the silent collapse beneath you. He was once a firefighter. Dennis, 74, arms still strong, voice still deep, but he sat in my office that day, frustrated. "Doc," he said, "I used to run into burning buildings. Now I can't even stand in line at the grocery store without this pressure building in my lower back, and sometimes I don't make it to the bathroom in time." I could see it in his eyes, not just discomfort but shame. And yet no one had told him the truth, that his body wasn't failing him. It was simply responding to years of disconnection. You see, a man's pelvic floor, that network of muscles beneath your abdomen, is like the scaffolding that holds your power. It controls bladder function, supports your spine, and even fuels sexual strength. And during arousal and orgasm, those muscles contract rhythmically, keeping them activated, supple, and alive. But when sexual activity fades, especially solo intimacy, those muscles stop engaging. They atrophy. And that silence becomes weakness. You start leaking when you cough. You feel urgency without warning. You avoid long walks. You map every public outing around restroom access, not because you're lazy, but because your foundation has quietly eroded and no one taught you how to protect it. Dennis had no idea he even had a pelvic floor. He thought it was aging, but it was neglect. And here's the hard truth. If you don't move those muscles, if you don't activate circulation through arousal and release, blood flow slows. Nerves grow dull. And even the tissue in your penis, yes, that tissue, begins to lose elasticity, sensitivity, and strength. This isn't a matter of desire. It's a matter of function. A matter of mobility, confidence, and freedom. So let me ask you, have you noticed subtle leaks, back pressure? Do you catch yourself walking slower, hesitating at the thought of long outings? Because if so, your core might be asking for something simple, something you've forgotten, a little attention, a little engagement, a little self-respect through action. And when you ignore that request, the consequences don't just show up in movement. They show up in your immune system, too. Next, we'll look at how sexual silence makes you sick more often than you think, and what to do about it. 6. Weakened immunity and more frequent illness when silence makes you sick. It was a brutal winter. Robert, 67, sat in front of me wrapped in a thick scarf, eyes dull, skin pale. "Doc," he said, "I used to shake off a cold in a day or two. Now, it knocks me out for weeks. I don't bounce back anymore." We reviewed everything. His diet was clean. Sleep routine solid, no new medications. No recent travel, so what had changed? Then I asked gently, almost too gently, "Are you still engaging with yourself sexually?" He gave a half smile, half shrug. "Haven't in years," figured that part of life was over. But it wasn't over, because hidden in that missing ritual was a biological defense system he had unknowingly abandoned. You see, during arousal and climax, the body releases more than just pleasure. It releases power, in the form of immune-enhancing chemicals like immunoglobulin. This vital antibody lines your respiratory and digestive tracts. forming the first line of defense against viruses, bacteria, and inflammation. And alongside it, a cocktail of oxytocin and endorphins, natural anti-inflammatories that calm the nervous system, reduce cortisol, and boost recovery. When this system is ignored, not just for days, but for months, even years, your immunity doesn't vanish. It just weakens. You get sick more often, recovery slows, fatigue lingers, and yet most men never connect the dots. They think they need more supplements, more rest, more antibiotics, but what they really need is to turn the system back on. To remind their body that it's not in retirement, that it's still alive, still engaged, still worthy of defense. Robert did exactly that. He returned a month later with color in his cheeks and a spring in his voice. Doc, I didn't just feel better, I felt stronger, like something had come back online. And that's the point. Your immune system isn't just a wall. It's a mirror reflecting how connected you are to yourself. And when that connection goes dark, something even more sacred can begin to slip away. Not your health, not your memory, but something deeper, your very sense of self. Let's talk about that next. 7. Loss of self-worth, ownership, and body, the quiet disappearance of the man within. He had been a high school principal. Franklin, 77, carried the air of a man once respected by generations of students. But when he sat across from me, shoulders hunched, eyes low, he said something I'll never forget. I don't feel like I live in this body anymore, Doc. It's like I'm just waiting out the years. That's not just sadness. That's detachment, the final stage of disconnection. And for many men, it starts the moment they stop seeing their body as theirs. They stop touching it, stop engaging with it, stop treating it like a place worth living in. And here's the hard part, it doesn't feel dramatic. It's quiet, you stop looking in the mirror, you get dressed without care, meals become mechanical, and slowly, silently, you start disappearing. Why? Because self-touch, even just simple, respectful, mindful self-intimacy, is not about fantasy. It's about ownership. It tells the nervous system, I'm still here. It reminds the soul, you matter. When you stop touching yourself, you're not just avoiding arousal. You're abandoning a sacred ritual of self-recognition. And with that loss comes something heavier, the erosion of self-worth. I've seen men who once stood tall now shuffle through life like guests in their own bodies. Not because of disease, but because no one ever told them you still have the right to feel, to connect, to exist with intention. One man told me after beginning to reconnect with himself, it wasn't about pleasure, it was about feeling human again. And I believed him because I saw it in the way he adjusted his shirt, the way he looked me in the eyes. The way he walked out of my office like a man who remembered he mattered. So let me ask you with all sincerity, have you stopped caring for the body you still live in? Because that body, your body, is still listening. And it doesn't want youth, it wants you. In our final chapter, we'll bring everything together. And I'll show you how to take the very first step back into strength, dignity, and presence. 8 final words reclaiming intimacy, reclaiming yourself. After more than 3 decades listening to men, strong men, proud men, quiet men, tell me how they've slowly faded from their own lives, I've come to believe this. It's not the loss of youth that hurts most. It's the slow disappearance of self. The moment a man stops touching his own body, he starts slipping away from it, not all at once, but little by little. His prostate swells. His mind grows foggy, his sleep becomes light and broken, his muscles weaken. He gets sick more often, and beneath it all there's a whisper, maybe I'm just too old. But you're not, you are still here, you are still alive. And more than that, you are still worthy of feeling alive. This isn't about reclaiming your 20s. It's about honoring the man you are now. The man who's seen things, built things, lost things, and still gets up in the morning with breath in his chest. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait for a partner, a prescription, or a perfect day. You just need one thing to remember, to reach back in, to reconnect. Even if it starts small with a moment of gentle attention. Even if it feels awkward at first. Even if you've been disconnected for years. Because self-intimacy isn't a luxury. It's a birthright, it's medicine, it's memory, it's dignity. So here's what I want for you, yes, you listening right now. May you sleep deeply, may your mind feel clear, may your heart stay open, may your body feel like home again. And if this message touched something in you, I want to hear it. Type 1 in the comments if it spoke to your truth. Type if you're still uncertain, that's okay too, we're here to listen. And if you haven't yet, hit that like button. Not just because it helps the channel, but because I truly believe. When a man takes one small action toward caring for himself, life responds, so may this be your moment. And if you choose to subscribe, welcome to this community of men who refuse to disappear. We see you, we respect you, and we're walking this road with you. Until next time, take care of yourself and never forget your body is listening.